Welcome back everyone. So in today's video I'll be showing you how to orchestrate, schedule and run Snowflake data warehouse jobs using Apache Airflow. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so like I mentioned in today's video, I will be showing you how to orchestrate, schedule and run Snowflake data warehouse jobs using Apache Airflow. Okay, so let's get to it. So these are the steps that we'll be following in order to achieve this. So the first thing that we need to do is ensure that we have Airflow installed and running on our environment. And in this case, we will be using Docker to run Airflow. And once we have that, then we will go ahead and log into Snowflake. And then we create our objects, and this includes tables and the stored procedures that we'll be using in our Airflow. Once this one is done, we'll go ahead to Airflow and we will create connections to Snowflake because we want to make sure that Airflow is able to connect to Snowflake. Okay, so that's our third step right here. And then once that one is done, we will then move ahead and create a simple DAG to trigger and run our Snowflake stored procedures. So in this video, we will be creating a stored procedure in Snowflake that will be loading data incrementally to a target table, and we will trigger that stored procedure from Airflow. Okay, so I will be showing you how to do both of the ways, manually and also how to automatically schedule your DAG from Airflow environment. Okay, and then once we have this one created, once we have our DAG created, then we will go ahead and run the DAG to confirm that it can trigger the stored procedure in Snowflake. Okay, so these are the 5 steps that we'll be following in this video. And also, like I mentioned, the stored procedure that we'll be using will be loading data incrementally to a target table in Snowflake. Okay, so let's then move over to step 1. So let's go ahead and make sure that we have Airflow installed. So I'm not going to actually go through the installation process because I already made a video previously where I went through the process of installing and running Airflow using Docker. Okay, so I will put that video in the description of this video, but I will just quickly show you in my channel where that video is in case you want to quickly take a look. Okay, so in my channel, this is the video right here, run Airflow with Docker, which is this one right here. So this video goes through the process of installing. I already installed Docker, so you obviously need Docker, and then once you have your Docker environment ready, then I show you how to spin up a Airflow environment through Docker. Okay, so take a look into this video. It will walk you through the step-by-step process comprehensively on how to run Docker. How to run Airflow with Docker. Okay, so once we have this one, then we will proceed then and use this environment. Okay, so this is one of the first steps that you will need. Now, if you don't want to run Airflow with Docker, I also made another video where I went through the process of running Airflow or installing Airflow without Docker really. So that video is also right here. So I made that video as well, how to install Airflow without Docker. So if you are interested in running without Docker, then you can also look into this video. So I have 2 of the videos available for you in case you are interested in one way or the other. Okay, so those are the 2 prerequisites that you definitely do need to make sure that you have. So you have to have Airflow installed on your environment. Okay, so that's our first step right there. And so let me go ahead actually and launch the Airflow environment. So what you will want to do is, if you installed Airflow with Docker, what you will want to do is go ahead and launch your Docker desktop. So in this case, I'm just going to go to my launchpad, launch the Docker desktop. It's going to appear right here. And then what you want to do, if you follow this video, is you want to go to your Visual Studio or the code editor that you use, and you want to go to the directory where you have your Airflow folder basically where you have your DAGs and logs and things like that, and you want to launch it. Okay, so because that's where we will be writing our DAGs. So in my case, I will go over to my Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to open that folder. Basically, this is a folder that I used to create that video that I made previously on Docker. Now, if you are using the virtual environment, I also did that. So basically, if you use the Python where you're not using Docker, so this was the one for that, but for Docker, I also created another folder for here. So I'm going to open this one because I'll be using Docker. And if we just quickly take a look into this structure right here, you can see that we have inside this folder, we have our config block here, and then we have DAGs, logs, and plugins. And then the most important one here is the Docker Compose, because Docker Compose is what we used to outline our images, Airflow, scheduler, workers, and everything, right? So we used Docker Compose for this purpose. And so this is where I went through, and you can take a look into that video. I walked through this file and what you need to modify in this file in order to have Airflow running in your environment. Okay, so, and if you come to the DAGs here, so this is where we will put our DAGs. Okay, so basically DAGs are your Python codes that will be orchestrating and telling Airflow what to do. So this is where you define your tasks and your workflows, right? Okay, so this is the DAGs folder, so you don't need these three. I mean, I think these are 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. So the most important one is definitely this part. Yeah, if you follow that video, it will tell you that you do need to create these additional folders because Airflow will want to know where to put the logs and everything. Okay. So once you have this, what we did in that video then was we went ahead and started our Airflow environment, and to do that, all you have to do is just run this command, docker compose, and you can just do it as basic as docker compose and up. Okay, so when you do that, it's going to spin up your Airflow environment. That's the scheduler, the UI, the database. It needs to store the metadata and everything. Okay, so as you can see here, it is now running, and there might be some warnings and everything, but as long as there's no error that stops your Airflow from running, then you should be good. So as you can see here, it seems like it has started and everything, and you can monitor the logs from here. So I'm going over now to my UI, and I will launch a Google browser here, and so Airflow runs on localhost port 8080. Okay, if you change the port inside that Docker Compose, then you can specify the port right here. Okay, and so I didn't change anything there. I just used Airflow as the username, and the password is also Airflow. Okay, so just enter those two here, and there you go. All right, so you have now your Airflow UI right here. Okay, so this is your Airflow UI, and from there you can go ahead and use it. Okay, so you can see we have a number of default DAGs here that are post. I think I have one here also, and I think this is the one that will be showing you in this video, so I'm just going to pause it, and we'll change the name for this one so that it's not going to be showing up right here. Okay, so this is your UI, and so once you have this ready, then that means that you are now ready to go ahead and start your development. Okay, so we have now step 1 fully confirmed that it's working properly. Okay, so then the next thing that we want to do is we want to go over to Snowflake, create our objects, and then we'll come back to our Airflow. Okay, so we will leave our environment running, the Airflow environment running. Now let's switch over to Snowflake. So for that, I'm just going to log into my Snowflake account, which is right here. I'm just going to log in. Okay, So again, if you don't have a Snowflake account, please go ahead and sign up for one. I think you do get a few days of free credit, and then after that, once you play with, then you may need to enter your bank information. Okay, so this is my Snowflake environment, and I'm going to go, actually before I open a SQL editor, this is the UI. I think the UI keeps changing. A few years back it was different, but I think Snowflake keeps updating the UI and everything. So this is how the current UI looks like as of 2025. So you can go to admin here, see your warehouses. So you can see I have a lot of warehouses. I think I do need to clean up this environment. I don't use a lot of this, but as you can see, we have a lot of them in suspended state. So you can have a data warehouse running in Snowflake. Sorry, you can have a data warehouse created. As long as it's not running, you will not be getting billed. Okay, so some of these I created many years back. I think like 4 years back or something. And you can see this one was 3 years ago. I think this one also was about that time as well. So this was I created this right about the time when I was training for my Snowflake Snowpro certification. So I think I need to go back here and clean some of this. But as you can see, they've been here. They are not charging me. So this is your data warehouses. You have your accounts here. You have your users. Most importantly, this is where you enable your users and disable them, create users and things like that. And then you have data products here. You can connect to third-party products and bring data from there. Okay, so that's your marketplace. And then this is now where you have your data. Okay, inside data is where you have your databases. So you have your databases here and also your schema, and this is where now you will store your data. Okay, so in this video we will be using this database right here, Airflow. If you want to create a database, you can just go here and hit create database, put the name here, run. It's going to create a database for you. So I have here the database I will be using, and inside this database I have created two schemas, bronze schema, and for the bronze schema we will have a table called sales data, and this data I don't know if I have data. Yeah, I do have this data. I'll show you how to create this. But I just do have some sample data here, and what we want to do is when we create this table, we will assume that we'll be getting sales data maybe daily or hourly. It depends. It doesn't matter. You might be getting CDC data from either S3 or from a streaming service or from another database coming to Snowflake. So we will just assume that this is some sort of CDC data coming to our Snowflake environment. And what we want to do is once we get our data here, we want to incrementally load this data to another schema. So maybe do some cleanup and then just load only the changed data to another location. So assuming this is kind of like load truncate, so once this data comes in, it overrides what is there, and you just want to get the data from this location and move it to another location within your Snowflake environment. So we can do something like that. So this is our CDC data, so we put here, and then from there we move this data to our target table. So kind of like incremental table, which will be storing all of our data, historical data and things like that. But now what we will do is we will create a stored procedure that will get the data from this location and only load the changed data to the silver location. Okay, so I will also be showing you this in a minute, how to create this. Okay, so this is the structure of our databases, and you can go ahead and add data here if you want to add data from say S3, Snowflake stage, load. So you have all of these options, and if you're interested, let me know in the comment section. I can deep dive into this, but in this video that is not the purpose. So let's go ahead now and create our objects. So the first thing that we need to do is to create our tables. Okay, so in this case we want to create our prawns table, right? So that will be the kind of staging layer where we are getting our CDC data to. So right here I'm inside. I just went here, went to Airflow, and then selected prawns location here, and that is where I want to create my sales data row kind of table, right? So this is a DDL for that. I'm creating this sales table with these columns, and this last modified timestamp here is an important one for this video, because this is what we'll be using to load incremental data to our target. Okay, so basically this is going to default for as a current timestamp. So every time we insert data to this table, this last modified date is going to automatically be updated with the timestamp when that data was loaded. And then we will now go ahead and filter using this last modified date. So let's say we load data right now to this table, and then after 3 hours we again load data here, then we can go ahead and run a filter just for the latest data based on the last timestamp. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to create this table. So let's actually, if you query this table, I think I already have data there, but I'm just going to start it from scratch. So we will replace that table. Okay, and when you query it again, it's empty. Okay, and then the next thing that I will do here is to basically load some sample data. Now if you are following this video, you can use any sample data. So you can use you can generate data for yourself. Just create a basic DDL with some sample data. If you're interested exactly on this data, I mean for this on this DDL, let me know. I will store this and I can probably give it to you if you're interested. But also, if you want to use some real world data sets to load to your environment, I went through a video previously where I went through, where you can get real world data sets, websites that you can do that, or how you can generate the data. So you can use even AI tools like ChatGPT, DeepSeek to generate this data. So it should not be very difficult to get sample data to play with. But so I have this sales data now available, so we'll go ahead and load this data right here. So I'm just going to execute this insert, and this insert is going to just basically insert these 20 records to that table. So we'll go ahead and confirm that they've been loaded. So you can see we have 20 tables now loaded to our prawns sales data table. Okay, all right, so now the next thing that we will do is to create our target table, okay, which will in this case will be the incremental table inside Silver schema. Okay, so this is where we will be loading our incremental data to. So we will be picking from the prawns layer and only getting the change data, and we load the change data to this table. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just mimic exactly the same kind of a structure. So we'll have the cell ID, product name, as well as the last modified date. So this will tell us when this data arrived into this location. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do this, and I'm going to run this. And if you query this incremental data here now, it should be empty, right? So it's empty. Okay, so we have our table now. The table is created, so we have the prawns one and the silver one. In this case, the prawns one is kind of the staging layer, and the incremental one here, as you know, is the one that will be storing our incremental data. Okay, so the next thing that we will do is to create a stored procedure. So this stored procedure, I will just quickly walk you. So I'm just creating or replace stored procedure here, our procedure, and we are calling the procedure incremental load. We are defining some of the parameters that Snowflake requires. So the language here is Python. We are putting the runtime, and as you can see, it is using Snowpack Python for Snowflake, or Snowflake Snowpack Python for in this case. And basically this is just a structure, and I'm putting the Python code inside here that will be executing our query, right? So right here you can see what we are basically doing here is running this query here, and this query, what it's doing is basically doing insert into sales incremental table. You can see we are inside the schema itself, but if you are in a different location, then you'll have to specify the path, right? Like basically the db dot schema, right, dot the table, right? So you can do something like that. And what we're doing is we're basically selecting from the now you can see here, right? I've done that. We are selecting from the sales data, which is in a different schema. And so in this schema we are filtering where the last modified date is greater than the maximum last modified date in our target table. Okay, this is how DBT also works. If you have watched some videos of some of my videos on DBT incremental, this is also how DBT works. Basically what you're doing here is you're going to your target table and you're getting the maximum last modified date, and what you're doing is from your source or a sales data which is coming from bronze, you want to only bring the where the last modified date is greater than this one. So basically this is the data that we haven't loaded yet, okay, based on the timestamp. All right, so this is what this query is doing, and I'm just wrapping it in a stored procedure because we will just be repeatedly running this stored procedure. So you know, for things like this where you just have a standard or the same query and you want to run the same every day, then you can put it inside a stored procedure, and all we just have to do is call this stored procedure, and it's going to execute this query every time and load the data to our destination. Okay, so that's what it's doing. And yeah, so this is just a standard definition of how you create a stored procedure in Snowflake. If you're interested on how to create a stored procedure in Snowflake, you can I'll put the link also, stored procedure in Snowflake. Okay, so if you do that, you can go to this location here and it is going to show you the languages that are supported. So you can see here, one thing that was interesting that I found was it doesn't support just a traditional SQL stored procedure in Snowflake. So it's kind of different if you come from, let's say, pQuery world, or let's say MySQL, Postgre. It's slightly different how stored procedures are created in Snowflake. So you will need to come to the documentation here and read more on how to configure your stored procedure. Okay, so that is but this is the way I've configured here. You can use JavaScript. I've used Python here. Okay, so then what we'll do from here is basically we want to run this stored procedure. So we will and make a note that the stored procedure will be creating under your schema. So whichever schema that you're running this under, make sure that you are in that location. Okay, so if for example here I'm inside silver, you can also do the same thing here where we are doing the DB, I believe the schema as well, for the where it will be stored. Okay, so we'll go ahead and run this. I'm just going to click here, run, and this is going to execute this sort of procedure. And now we have it created here with the name of incremental load. If you expand here, go to Airflow, and I believe inside silver we have the stored procedure right there. There we go. Okay, so this is that stored procedure. I don't think we can. So you can see the definition here. You can see the definition. Yeah, so you can get the create statement right here, which is neat. Okay, so you can get all of this from here. Okay, and yeah, those are just additional edits. All right, so we have our stored procedure ready now. So the next thing that we will do is to go ahead and execute this stored procedure. Okay, so we will now switch over to Airflow and do this. Now, in some cases, if you are not sure whether I've tested this stored procedure, so it works fine, but you may want to basically test it, just call the stored procedure. So if you want to test it and call it, you can do it like so. Just copy it and just execute call that stored procedure and run it, okay? And then you can see if there are any errors. But I think, yeah, you might want to test it manually before you go ahead and put it in in Airflow, so that you reduce the amount of errors that you run into. But I've already tested this, so we'll switch over to Snowflake, to Airflow now. And so in our steps we have, so this, the second step is done. So the next thing we need to do is to create our connection from Airflow to Snowflake. So let's do that, because we want to make sure that we are able to connect from Airflow to Snowflake, okay? So to do that, just come over to your Airflow UI, and what you want to do is you want to navigate over to admin section and go to connections. So I'm going to open this one on a new tab, and from here what you will do is, I already have here the connection here for me created, but what you want to do is just go here and say add record, and you can put your name of your connection here. And so in the connection type, you can see that we have a number of options here. You want to scroll until you see Snowflake, or you can also search from here Snowflake, right? So you will see it here. Now, if it's not showing for you, in case Snowflake is not showing for you here, then you can update your, you can go over to I think you need to install this one, pip install Apache Airflow providers inside your environment. And so this is mostly most likely will be the case if you are using if you're not using Docker. So if you are just using the Python virtual environment and you don't see Snowflake in there, then you can go to your Python virtual environment and just run this to install the Airflow providers for Snowflake, and just restart your environment, come back, and most likely you'll see it here. If you don't see it, just let me know, and then we will see how to troubleshoot it. Okay, so choose Snowflake and then go ahead and put your schema. So in our case, our schema was bronze, right? So that is where we were getting our data from. You can connect to any one of them, really. You just want to make sure that you are able to connect to Snowflake. And then the login, you put your username here. Okay, you put your username here. This is a username that you use to log into Snowflake. Okay, so you can put a user there, and then the password as well. And then right here now, this is where you put your account. Now for the account, your Snowflake account will be looking something like this. So let me just copy this. Your Snowflake account generally will be looking something like this. So you have the, your ID here, and then it will be the location, US East, or based on your location. If you're running on Azure, it will be saying Azure here. If you're on AWS, it will be saying AWS, and snowflakecomputing.com. So what you want to do is, up to this point here, I don't think you need to include this. All you have to do is just include up to right here, like so, up to Azure. Once it says Snowflake Computing, I don't think you need to you don't need to include that. And then you want to put here your warehouse. So in my case, I chose one of the warehouses I was using. Basically, the warehouses are these ones here I was showing you earlier. If you go to, I think, let's open this one here. If you go to admin warehouses, you can choose one of the warehouses from your Snowflake. Okay, so just specify that inside here. Put the database. In our case, it was Airflow, right? And then you can put a region if you like, and then for the role, you can put the role here, and the role here is basically the one you get from here. So if you go to the user that you're using, so pick a certain user. For my case, I'm using demo user, and then just go ahead and put the role that's associated with this user. So you can see in this case, I have account admin as the user here. Okay. and then just come back here and add it here. So account admin, put it right there. I think that's pretty much it, and go ahead and save it, and you should be good to go. So there's no option for testing here, so just save it, and once you save it, you can now go back and create your DAG. So in my case, let me go back to connections. In my case, I have this as the connection ID, and I have tested this one also, and it's able to work. So just go ahead. This connection ID is the one that we'll be using in our DAG. Okay, so we have now our connection to Snowflake listed here and created here, and now the next thing that we need to do is to go ahead and create our DAG. Okay, and this DAG will be triggering that stored procedure that we created. Okay, so we'll go over to Visual Studio Code now, where we have our Snowflake, where we have our DAGs located. Okay, so right here, this is the folder that I have my structure for Airflow. What we want to do is go to DAGs right here, and all you have to do is basically create a file here, and you can name the file anything, but it has to be a .py, right? Okay, so I already did that. So the one that we'll be using is this one here, Snowflake query DAG. Okay, that's the name. And basically what this DAG is doing is we are importing here the operators we'll be using. So we have Snowflake operator here and a dummy operator just for lineage and readability. So I am in. So right here, I'm basically here creating variables for database ID. This is the database ID for the one that we have in Airflow, and the schema that we are using here is Silver. Now, the reason I'm using the Silver schema here is because this is where our stored procedure is located. So when we call this stored procedure down here, it's going to go over to our location here and see if that stored procedure is there. So if you don't do that, then it might throw an error because it wants to go to Snowflake and make sure that that stored procedure exists. Okay, so that's the reason I'm putting it there. And then we have default arguments here. This is very basic. You can include more. So for example, if we want to catch up, I specified here to go 1 day ago, and only a number of retries we have here is 1. You can also increase this to 3 or 5 depending. And then so the DAG here, I'm basically starting the DAG here using context manager, and inside here we have our DAG ID. So we are calling this Snowflake incremental load DAG, and the way it is currently, this is the way you can identify the DAG from your Airflow UI. So if you go back to the UI and go to DAGs, and so if you go here, if you scroll down, we have something like that, Snowflake maybe we can search it also based on that. So we go back to here, and if you just search using this ID, come back to right here, you can just basically just put it here and you'll see right here. Okay, so that is the ID. So the ID that you put there is the one that will be showing in your UI right here. So I'm going to change the name for that. So we will just say Snowflake incremental load like so. Okay, so that will change we just want to make sure that we get a new DAG. Okay, so this is basically a unique ID for your DAG, and then the default documents getting up from here. The schedule interval here is important. So right now I've put it as daily, but so what this schedule does is once you have your DAG ready and ready to go, in this case it's going to be running daily. Could be midnight, could be like 7 a.m. in the morning, but in this case it's going to be running once a day. Okay, so if that is your desire option, then you can leave it here. But if you want to say use cron expression, for example, run for like every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes, every 1 hour, 1 day in a week, specific day in a week, specific time in the day of a month. So you can define it in whichever way. So you can also do something like this, where we are running it every 2 minutes, like so. All you have to do is just put it there, and then so it's going to be triggering this job every 2 minutes in this case. So we don't want to do that, because one of the risks also of running at a very high frequency like this is you might run into a scenario where you have a job already running and then it starts running again, and now they will be clashing. So we'll be running this manually, but this is how you schedule it. This way you put the schedule, and we are not catching up in this case. We are not putting catch up, so I'm using this as false, so we don't want to backfill. And here using this dummy operator and also another dummy operator here, and this is where all of the meat and potatoes is happening right here. So this is where the main thing is happening. This is now the task to execute the stored procedure for our incremental load, and this is the stored procedure. So we are basically using this Snowflake operator to execute our stored procedure in Snowflake, right? So this is a task ID, incremental load, and what we are doing here is basically now calling that stored procedure. So call, and then we are putting the database ID here, which is airflow dot the schema ID, which in this case is silver, and dot incremental load. Okay, so it's going to go inside our schema in our database, and inside that schema it's going to look for a stored procedure called incremental load, and if it's there, then it's going to execute it. And then the last thing here that we have is the connection ID. So you can see we are defining here the Snowflake connection ID, and in this case we have put Snowflake con, which is what we created in the UI, right? So that's what I was showing you in the UI right here. Okay, so you want to definitely create that before, so that you are able to connect to Snowflake. So this is what we have here. So you can see I have put it in the connection here. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to look into this connection. If it's able to connect to Snowflake, then it's now going to execute your query. If it's not able to, then this job is going to fail. Okay, so we have this one now configured, and then if the last thing here is you want to start the task dependencies, set it. So this is how this will be running. You have the start, this will be running fast, and then the next one will be the incremental load, and then the last one we just close it. So if you have a lot of tasks inside here, then this is how you define it. So you can also, if you want to run parallel jobs, so say you have 2 jobs at the same time that you want to run them in parallel, then you can put it like so. Okay, so assuming the task is there. All right, but in this case we are just running them sequentially, so that is how this lineage is working. Okay, we'll go ahead and save this. And now once you save it, because all of this is inside your environment, scheduler environment and everything, so the Airflow scheduler is going to notice that we have a DAG here, and it is going to create that DAG for you in your Airflow UI, and then you should be able to trigger after that. Okay, so we can use this ID here to locate that. So you can just copy this ID here, and then we'll go back to our UI. We'll go to DAG section. Okay, so if there's any error, you will see it right here, but if nothing is there, then that means that you should be good. And then what we have to do is just go here and search for that ID, and there we go. So you can see that we have that ID right here. We open this DAG, and this is how it looks like. If you look at the graph, you can see start, incremental load, end. You can also go to the code section here and just make sure that the code is as you desire. Okay, so this is the code that we were just going through, and as you can see, we have everything configured as needed. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do now, as you can see, this is post, so we will unpost this and most likely manually trigger it. But before we do that, let me just go over to Snowflake. Okay, and I want to show you, I want to make sure that we don't have, so I'm going to open our worksheet, and we want to make sure that, so we have the prawns table. Okay, so we have the prawns table right here. So our prawns table currently has data, right? we added those 20 records to our bronze table, but our silver table does not. Okay, so currently it doesn't. So what we want to do is we will execute the stored procedure to trigger. Okay, so we'll execute the stored procedure. We'll execute our Airflow to trigger this stored procedure right here. So once we do that, what we expect to do is what we'll expect to happen is Snowflake is going to determine that we don't have data, we don't have this data already in our incremental destination table. So it's basically going to load everything. That's the short of it, because you know it's going to go there. It's going to find the table, the column, but because we don't have data, then it's going to basically bring everything from our bronze schema and load it here. Okay, so we'll see when that happens. Okay, so let's go over now to our Airflow, and then what we want to do is okay, so we will right here, right? So we will just unpost this DAG, okay, and sometimes yeah it starts automatically, so you can see it quickly started. All right, so when you unpost it, it started, so you can start monitoring the logs now. You go here, there we go. So that one finished very fast, so you can see that this task went successfully and it ran. So you can monitor here. We have a warning here, connection is open, so you can ignore that. So seems like we don't have any error here, so looks like everything ran fine, and as you can see it finished executing this thing. So to confirm if our data now was loaded, then all we have to do is go back to our table now, and we can query if we have any data in our silver, right? So I'm just using this query, select last modified count star, just to see how many rows were added, right? So if we run this, you can see now that we have 20 records, and the last modified date was this one here. So you can see this is 2025-31, and this is the timestamp here. Most likely, I don't know if that is the same one we have here. Probably yes. Okay, yeah, so that is the modified date that we're getting from our bronze schema. So it's matching, as you can see, it's matching what we have here. Okay, so it basically brought all the data from our bronze schema and loaded them right here to this destination. Okay, so let's just query those data. Let's get a quick overview of how this data looks like. All right, so this is how your data looks like. We have the products, quantity, price, and everything, and this is the last modified date. And just again, so you can, just for auditing purposes, we only have 20 records now added. Right now, let's go ahead and add more data to that table, right? So we will add more data to our bronze table. And so our first run we had 20 records, so the second run we will add additional 10 records. Now remember, every time you add the data to your sales data, in this case we are using this timestamp to record the current timestamp. So in the insert query here, I'm not putting the timestamp because Snowflake will do it automatically for us. So once I run this, it's going to record the current timestamp, most likely, of when this was loaded. Okay, so we'll execute this. This will be 10 additional records added, and let's see now if we run this. So as you can see, currently in this sales data we have 20 records with this timestamp. Now let's add additional, we have added 10 records now, so you can see those 10 records appeared right here, and it has different timestamps. So this is a timestamp that we added. So now when we run our stored procedure, what it's going to do is, because the second right, so this timestamp here is greater than this one, right? And this first timestamp here is what we have in our silver. Now what it's going to do, the stored procedure, right? What's going to do is it's going to compare the timestamp that we have in our incremental data, and if it is less than what we have in prawns, then it's going to bring those additional records right here. So we expect those additional 10 records now to also be loaded into our incremental table right here. Okay, so as of now we only have this one. Now let's assume that our pipeline is now going to run the next 1 hour or the next day, and it's going to load those data incrementally. So in this case, we will just run this Airflow again, but you can also do the scheduling as well. Okay, so you can put the scheduler here like I showed you before. You can just add the cron here and just let this be actively running. Don't pause it, and it's just going to automatically run itself once this time reaches. Okay, so we are going to just trigger this DAG again for now because we don't want to wait. So I'm going to trigger this, and basically we expect this to run, right? So you can monitor the logs here, and we expect this to run. Of course, if there are any errors, then you will be able to see them right here, and you can, you know, dig into what the error is. So this one ran fine. We are able to run it. So let's go back to our Snowflake environment now. So this is our silver schema. We are inside sales incremental table. This is our target table. Now if we run this query here, we expect those additional records added. There we go. Okay, so you can see that this is the data that we just added in our prawns. So this is a timestamp right here. Okay, 047, and we have 047 here. So what it did was it just compared, right? It compared the last modified date, you know, what we have in sales data against what we have in our incremental target table. So basically it caught here the maximum one, and because the maximum one was the previous one, in this case I think it was this one, so then it went ahead and brought those additional 10 records right here. Okay, so you can see now that we have, if you count the records here, we should have of course 30 records, because that is what we have now. So there we go. Okay, so we have 30 records. So you can see that with incremental loads you can kind of use it as historical table that you can audit over time. But now you have your processes coming in, your CDC data coming in, and you know, you just want to load this to your table without processing everything. Okay, so that's just a beauty of doing incremental loads in Snowflake and basically in any other data warehouse. Okay, alright guys, I know this video has gone on for quite some time. I will end it here, but just a quick recap before we end it. In this video we went through the process of using Airflow to orchestrate Snowflake data warehouse jobs, and in this case we created our tables and stored procedure in Snowflake, and we assumed that stored procedure will be loading data incrementally to our target incremental table. So we did all of this, and then we went to Snowflake, created our DAG, and we were able to successfully trigger this job from Airflow environment, and then we can see that it's able to execute a query in Snowflake and do the work as we desire. Okay, so that is how you do it, guys. So that's how you use Airflow to orchestrate and run Snowflake jobs. So from here you can just, you know, explore this and, you know, put more transformations, and basically, you know, Airflow now will be doing the automation for you. So if you have a query that runs daily to refresh a report or whatever, then you can just use Airflow and you can just monitor it. And one thing that we didn't add here is we did not add you know, like things like email notifications. So you can edit this DAG here and just, you know, add your email here or a team email, so that whenever there's a failure, then that email, a notification will be sent to the people in that email, and then you can just go ahead and check what the problem is, and obviously you know, resolve the error, right? Okay, so you can also add a number of retries here, so that let's say there are 3 retries. The first time, let's say it fails, then you obviously you definitely want to retry it a few times, in case sometimes it could be a network error, could be something else. Just use the number of retries that you desire, and then you can go ahead and schedule your workflows. Okay. Alright guys, that's it for today. If you found this video helpful, please give a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel if you have not, so that you can stay updated next time I release videos like this. Alright guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.